I mean, I try to be like a comprehensive resource for all different kinds of people. It's it's a challenge. Let's say we're still working towards that ultimate goal. Hit me, producer Potts.
What would be your advice to someone who's struggling to meet the serving targets that you have laid out for us so beautifully in the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix due to the fact that it's way more food than they can comfortably eat in a day?
Sure. So I have two different suggestions that can be combined. So those serving targets for vegetables, fruit, so those are daily serving targets, and then weekly serving targets for cruciferous vegetables, leafy vegetables, root vegetables, mushrooms, alliums, that's the onion family, nuts and seeds, legumes, and seafood. Those serving targets are derived from scientific evidence showing that's where we kind of start to maximize the benefits. There's not a whole lot of benefit exceeding those serving targets for those nutritionally really important foods. A lot of math went into creating those serving targets, not just looking at, where does the all-cause mortality, a general indicator of health and longevity, plateau, or risk of cardiovascular disease or cancer start to plateau with increased doses of those foods, but also what amount of these foods on average are we contributing, what percentage of essential nutrients, right? Vitamins, minerals, protein, fiber, healthy fats, how far does that get us towards meeting our nutritional needs? And as a general rule, when you sort of combine the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix with the Nutrivore Meal Map, which has more general servings for protein foods, starchy foods, as well as like fruits and vegetables, you can, depending on your energy needs, somewhere between 50 and 75% of your caloric requirements focused on the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix will meet your nutritional needs, which gives you a lot of flexibility for whatever else you want, right? Whether that's a budget stretching food, a convenience food, just something that's darned tasty, some type of traditional food for your culture, right? So that is not saying that the 75% needs to not align with your culture or align with your preferences. You still get to make all of those foods in tasty, delicious ways, but rather that like focusing on those whole foods kind of expedites the process of meeting our nutritional needs, right? That is the math that went into devising the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix. But not everybody has an appetite. Like not everyone's energy requirements are high enough that those serving sizes make sense. So a couple of like moving pieces here. So one of the reasons why in my book, when I'm laying out all of the science for each serving target in the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix, I actually quote several different studies showing the magnitude of benefit for different amounts of serving. So I actually, like, for example, for daily vegetables, I talk about a study that shows 3 servings of vegetables per day is optimal, and then a couple of studies showing 4, 5, 6 servings of vegetables per day is optimal, kind of to show you where the science is mixed, and also show you like there's still huge benefits to 3 servings of vegetables per day. So one of the reasons why I've included that conversation in this book, or if you would prefer the digital resource, it's also included in the instructions for the digital resource. The reason for that is it gives us some place to, right, have that compromise. Like there's no way I have an appetite for 5 servings of vegetables per day, but look, like the science on here is mixed. Let's aim for 3. There is science to support 3 as a target. So let's go for 3. So part of it is kind of like looking at those individual serving targets and figuring out like where can my personal target be lower. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is that there are lots of foods that fit into more than one category. So especially when we're talking about vegetables, right? So your weekly servings of mushrooms, cruciferous vegetables, root vegetables, alliums, and what did I not say? Leafy vegetables. Those count towards your daily servings of vegetables too, right? So if you have that serving of mushrooms, it counts both as a mushroom checkbox and as a daily vegetable checkbox. So that's making sure that we understand that every time you eat a food, you check every box that counts, right? You're checking multiple boxes often when you eat a single food. in each section of the Nutrivore Weekly
So
Serving.
like kale could count as a cruciferous veggie and the leafy veggie.
Yes, this is exactly where I'm going. So when so a lot of cruciferous vegetables are either root vegetables or leafy vegetables, right? There are, I guess alliums you could probably count chives as a leafy vegetable if you wanted to. Alliums are a little bit harder, but also a serving for garlic is 1 tablespoon, right? Like, whereas
you could just toss that into whatever
add some
you're
garlic
cooking
to your stuff and you're good, right? Like,
yeah.
And you're only looking for 3 servings a week, so that's adding a clove of garlic a day, right? We'll get you there. So there are ways to find that efficiency, right? Where the food counts in more than one category. So you can count your rutabaga as both a root vegetable and a cruciferous vegetable, your kale or your collard greens or your arugula as both a leafy green and a cruciferous vegetable. So that helps with that efficiency. Another strategy here is that often the volume shrinks when cooked. So your 2 cups of raw spinach as a serving of leafy vegetables is only going to be 1/3 of a cup once cooked. And that could be very helpful for
that's like a bite and a half, I think. Like
not much.
It's not much.
This is especially helpful if your appetite is also not up to your energy requirements. So if you have a low appetite and you really struggle to maintain a healthy weight, like you're constantly under eating, this is where a strategy like having your vegetables cooked or more cooked foods, right? But also pureed, like making smoothies is a great way to pack in a lot of energy dense ingredients into a smaller package and potentially eat like more, like you're looking to eat more, right? Like it's not just that you're trying to get all of the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix servings with a smaller appetite. It's that your appetite is also not up to your energy requirements. So these other tips are for more like both my energy requirements are lower and my appetite is lower, but there are times where you might want to try to hit those servings because even though your appetite is lower, your energy requirements are still higher. So that would be where making sure it's cooked or pureed or, put in a soup, going for those like higher energy density options to get the calories up. That's where that strategy could come into play. But the last like little piece here of tips, and again, you might want to do any or all of the above, is to scale serving sizes by person size. So all of those serving sizes, right? 1 cup for vegetables measured raw, except 2 cups for leafy vegetables, 3 ounces cooked for meat and seafood, 1/2 cup cooked for whole grains or legumes, 1 ounce for nuts and seeds, right? All of those serving sizes are average serving sizes for an average sized adult. And the better way to scale servings for different size person, if you're a very, petite person, a cup is a big serving for you, right? Also, if you're a 7-foot tall person, a cup is not very much for you, right? So a great way to scale this is with the visual approximations, which are both in the book. I've got visual approximations up on the Nutrivore website, and they're also in the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix digital resource. So that's why I talk about 1 cup being about the same volume as your fist, right? So for an average sized adult, that's going to be very close. Like the size of a fist is going to be very close in volume to the volume of a cup of vegetables. At 3 to 4 ounces is about what the palm of your hand is, right? So all of those visual approximations work in terms of matching the servings for an average adult, but they build in that scale. So if you're a smaller person, right, that you probably have smaller hands. And
right.
So that
it's really helpful for parents with kids too, because you're thinking about, I've got to get my kid to eat a cup full of vegetables 3 times a day. That's a lot of food. But when you look at like their tiny hands, it's like a bite or 2. So actually a bite or 2 is fine.
Right. So think about the scales for kids, the scales for, very like tall, large people, right? Like, it's a great way to sort of build in the scaling up or down based on the person who's eating the food. So another way to kind of approach this is go, all right, I'm still going to aim for 5 servings of vegetables per day, but I'm going to refer to a serving not as a cup, but as roughly the volume of my fist, and my fist is 3/4 of a cup or half a cup. Like my fist is smaller because I'm smaller. And you can combine those, right? You can also say, okay, I need to just aim for 3 servings per day. That's what's appropriate for me. And I'm going to also, call a serving the smaller because I'm smaller, right? So this is how you can also scale for, that's nothing, I need way more food than that. You can use these same ideas to scale up as well. So that is a bunch of different strategies for making the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix work for different appetites. I will say, ease into that, figure out where your compromises are, and then it might still be worth doing a what we call like nutrient tracking temperature checks, where you use an app that will give you all of your like vitamins, minerals, fiber, protein, right? All of those numbers. And if you find tracking triggering, try just writing it down on a piece of paper, and then after, like the next day, put it all into the app rather than logging it as you go, so that you don't need to have logging it impact your food decisions. But just put it all in for 1 to 3 days and just double check, are there any nutrients that I'm falling short of? Because if there's certain servings like that you're doing more compromise on, it could have the net effect of making certain nutrients harder to get. So just doing a little like, hey, is there anything that I did 3 days in a row and I fell short on all 3 days? Just now let me look up some foods that are good sources of that nutrient and make sure to incorporate more of those moving forward. So just like when we're making those compromises with the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix, it just increases the likelihood that it's not quite sufficient to meet our nutritional needs. So when we're making those compromises, absolutely, totally cool. Also, you might want to compromise if you're allergic to something, right? Or you have a health condition that means that I can't eat any vegetables raw because they cause GI badness, or I'm allergic to fish and seafood, I can't eat that, or I'm allergic to berries, right? Like I can't eat that. Like there's other compromises that you can make. It's not the idea behind the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix was to create a formula for people who really love just like eating something predictable and not having to put a lot of thought into it because they're following a formula that made it as easy as possible to meet our nutritional needs and get all of those foods that are really important for supporting long-term health at the right amounts to support long-term health, while building in as much room as possible for quality of life foods, right? That was the goal behind the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix. But also, not every tool works for every person. You can use other resources that are like all in the book or available on the website, like the Nutrivore Meal Map. You can work on just diversity, right? Like there's other places to start rather than really struggling with the serving targets in the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix and feeling like, you're a failure. You're not. Like that just also may not be the best tool for you. And maybe it's time to just think about the Nutrivore Meal Map and diversity and kind of worry about serving targets for specific vegetable and fruit families later, right? So that's the other piece of this, which is that there's other ways to eat a nutrivore diet, meaning a diet that meets our nutritional needs from the foods that we eat. There's so many different ways to do that. So yes, it's absolutely okay to make some compromises with the Nutrivore Weekly Serving Matrix. It's absolutely okay to make some swaps, to go, okay, well, you can do this on a plant-based diet, for example, right? But then you don't have any food sources of omega-3s, so that helps you identify a need for a supplementation strategy, right? So like there's other ways to use this resource that isn't about like struggling because you feel like you can't eat everything on your plate. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's so helpful. Just to point out, if you do that nutrient temperature check and you see you're deficient on some things and you want to know what foods to eat, you can go to Nutrivore.com. You can look for that nutrient on the website. They're all there. And then it'll tell you what the best food sources are for that. So Sarah has that all covered for you as well, which is awesome.
I mean, I try to be like a comprehensive resource for all different kinds of people. it's a challenge. Let's say we're still working towards that ultimate goal.
This was great. Thanks so much, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you.